2024, and it is about 2:05 p.m. We'll call the roll, please.
Chairwoman Johnson, Chairman DeSimone,
Present.
Member Bettenker,
Here.
Present.
Member Giacone,
Present.
Member Maderas, Member Scholl,
Present.
Executive Director Miguel Nunez,
Present.
Legal Counsel Ray McCarthy.
Present.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Item number 1, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 6th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any noes? Item number 2, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of the February 16th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I might recuse myself since I wasn't here.
So one abstention.
Thank you.
Item number 3, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 20, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 4, board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of February 26, 2024, but I believe that's listed in our package as February 22. Is that correct?
Mhm.
I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to adjust item 4 from February 26 to February 22.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes, any opposed? Ayes have it. I will abstain from the actual vote, but I'll vote to approve the change in the agenda, but I'll have to abstain from the actual vote because I wasn't present. Now, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22, 2024 meeting?
So
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any opposed? None opposed. I will abstain, so 3-1. Next item of business is item 5. The board may hear and consider any election matter that requires an immediate ruling or determination arising from the special election for Woonsocket City Council pursuant to Title 17 of the Rhode Island General Laws. Executive Director Nunez.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the board. Today, for the Woonsocket City Council special election, the Woonsocket Board of Canvassers is operating 6 polling locations across their city. They hired 2 poll workers to assist with the 20-day early day voting period for this Woonsocket City Council special election, and they have hired 40 poll workers to staff their polling locations across the city in operation today. Polls opened at 7 a.m. this morning without any issues. As of a short while ago, 508 voters have voted at the polls. 143 have already voted during the early voting period, and 183 have requested a mail ballot. There are 25,669 registered voters in the city of Woonsocket. Once the polls close at 8 p.m., results will be posted to our website. This concludes my update to the board on the Woonsocket City Council special election. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director, are there any issues that we need to take up, or can this matter just pass for now?
There are no issues.
We'll move on to item number 6. Board may discuss and vote to approve the following relocation of the polling location for Providence for the presidential preference primary to be held on April 2, 2024. And it is a change from the Da Vinci Center at 470 Charles Street, Providence, Rhode Island, moving to Charles Place, 460 Charles Street, Providence, Rhode Island. Director.
Members of the board, pursuant to board's rule and regulation on the relocation of polling places, which was adopted on August 5th, 2022, the Providence Board of Canvassers on Tuesday, February 22nd, unanimously voted to request to relocate precinct 2804, which is currently located at the Da Vinci Center, located at 470 Charles Street in Providence, to the Charles Place Apartments, which is located right next door at 460 Charles Street in Providence. The 2 facilities are adjacent to each other, and they actually share the same parking lot. The BOE staff was notified of this request on the same day as the Board of Canvassers held their meeting. The Da Vinci Center was originally approved by this board as a polling place for the presidential preference primary on February 6, but subsequently was deemed unusable due to flood damage in the room that is used to conduct voting. The staff at the Da Vinci Center is hopeful that repairs will be completed in time for the September statewide primary, but they will not be completed in time for this presidential preference primary on April 2nd. There are currently 2,592 registered voters in this precinct. Prior to the PPP, the Providence Board of Canvassers will notify voters of the change through the mail. They will also place signage at the Da Vinci Center on April 2nd, informing voters that their polling location has moved next door. The Voter Information Center at vote.ri.gov will also be updated to reflect the change so that voters who visit the site and search for their polling location will be provided with the updated information. The staff concurs with this request from the Providence Board of Canvassers and asks that you approve it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the director? There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second made. All in favor of the relocation of the polling place signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. On to item number 7. Board may discuss and vote on the contract for KNOW INK LLC for software and service agreement beginning upon approval by the board through January 1, 2026 for the electronic poll book system.
Honorable members of the board, the staff began working on this contract for electronic poll books in early October of 2023. The current agreement, which the Secretary of State entered into in 2018, expired at the end of 2023. As you know, at the end of the last session of the General Assembly, legislation was passed that shifted the purchasing authority for voting equipment from the Secretary of State to the Board of Elections. This new contract is based on previous contracts signed by the Secretary of State's office in 2016 for a small pilot program and the contract that was signed in 2018, which is the one that recently expired with the Secretary of State's office. This contract before you today is based on our cooperation input from the Office of the Secretary of State and the Rhode Island Department of Enterprise, Technology, Strategy, and Services, or ETSS. Commissioner Jack Boney also thankfully provided his input, as well as legal counsel Ray McCarshall reviewed the final version of this draft. This proposal totaling $844,000 through June 30th of 2025 also contains an option for an additional 2 years for the cost of $702,000 through June of 2027, just before the presidential cycle of 2018. The agreement will add an additional 400 electronic poll books to our current inventory of 1,600 e-poll books, as well as provide continued use and support of the vendor's services, as well as an additional dedicated project manager to be provided by the vendor throughout the terms of this agreement. The staff requests that the board approve this agreement so that it may be submitted to the Department of Purchasing for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Just from me, Ray, you've had an opportunity to review this.
Yes, I made a number of revisions, several revisions that I can think of that were adopted by the vendor. I know that Board Member Giacavone reviewed it before I did. So yes, I have fully reviewed it.
And Commissioner, this is a document you discussed with us previously, so you made some revisions as well.
This is, I think, similar revisions that we discussed about the ES&S contract. Just briefly, the biggest changes are page 5 and what's now numbered page 9. Basically, section I on page 5, just it's very common to have language in these types of contracts to, if there's a severity level of a particular patch that's needed for the systems. And the other thing that I just requested was added, and thank you to everybody for their work on this and knowing for being very easy to work with on this, just to ask them to make sure if they do have any of our data, which they generally shouldn't have, that it not be stored outside of the United States. So those are the two main things that were added.
Can I ask a brief logistics question, just of timing? so you mentioned this, the contract with Secretary of State ended it in 2023. So what happens? So because we've had a lag on time, like, is there an issue with it? Are we paying sort of retroactively?
We
To
are
start
the
2020?
vendor, because we already have an existing a relationship with the vendor, and we already we already have 1,600 of their units that we use statewide. They have agreed to continue providing services in the interim until the contract is finalized.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if things went south and if the contract for some reason were not signed and there was a disagreement and the relationship ended, they would still have like a quantum merit claim, a claim for services that were provided,
Okay.
and they would get a reasonable return for that as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you to the staff, and particularly thank you to Commissioner Giacavone for going through these items, and also our legal counsel and our executive director for putting this all together. Is there a motion with regard to the contract? So there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion made and seconded. If there are no questions, I'll take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Number 8, board may discuss and vote to certify the logic and accuracy testing for mail ballots for the Woonsocket City Council special election to be held on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, and for early voting in the presidential preference primary to be held on April 2, 2024. Executive Director.
So I'm going to give two separate reports because we have a lot of testing going on right now, and we have two elections that we're preparing for and conducting simultaneously. So just in the air, to keep it simple, I will give you two reports. First on the Woonsocket City Council special election testing, and then with the presidential preference primary early voting testing. Logic and accuracy testing for the mail ballot tabulation equipment for the Woonsocket City Council special election was conducted yesterday, March 4th. The testing was open to the public. As you know, the board had previously certified the logic and accuracy testing for the voting equipment that's being used at the polls today in Woonsocket and was used at the early voting site during the 20-day early voting period. However, at that time, LNA testing could not be completed on the mail ballot high-speed tabulation equipment. As mentioned at that previous meeting, because we were in the process of upgrading our voting system software version, the voting equipment used in the Woonsocket special primary held on February 6th had to continue using the previous version of the software and was not upgraded along with all of the equipment to be used in the upcoming presidential preference primary. Election Systems and Software sent a team back to upgrade those remaining units that were used in the Woonsocket special primary, and all equipment used in this Woonsocket special election have now been upgraded to our new software version. One ES&S staff and one Board of Election staffs were involved in testing. Two DS-850 high-speed tabulators were tested. One test deck of 36 ballots was fed through the DS-850 high-speed tabulators 3 times. ES&S has provided to you 3 reports for this special election. The first is the 0 report, which is prior to the testing. The second report shows the results from the test deck of ballots. This has been compared to the key, which shows what the results should be. These results match. And the third results show that each of the DS-850s has been reset to 0, and they are now ready for tabulation for this evening. The staff will tabulate 157 mail ballots this evening received in the Woonsocket special election. Results will be displayed on our website after the close of the polls at 8 p.m. At this time, if the board has no questions, I ask that you certify the voting equipment to tabulate mail ballots for the City Council special election. And for the LNA testing for the presidential preference primary early voting equipment, that testing began yesterday at 8 a.m. and concluded this morning. The testing was open to the public. 7 ES&S staff and 7 Board of Elections staff were involved in testing for the presidential preference primary early voting equipment. 2 DS-200s and 2 express vote units are being deployed to each of the 39 cities and towns for early voting, except in Cranston, East Providence, Pawtucket, Providence, and Warwick, who will receive 3 DS-200s for their early voting period. for a total of 83 DS-200s and 78 express votes involved in this testing. 8 Democrat ballots and 12 Republican ballots for a total test deck of 20 ballots were fed through each DS-200. This includes 2 express vote cards, 1 for each party. Providence had 16 Democrat ballots and 24 Republican ballots and 4 express vote cards fed through because they are both in CD1 and in CD2 in the city of Providence. A total of 1,720 test ballots were used during this testing of the early voting equipment for the PPP. 2 DS-200s were replaced during testing. One requires a firmware upgrade, and the other had a modem issues, and those were replaced. 0 express vote units were replaced during testing. The Secretary of State's Elections Division conducted a review of the express vote ballot information and has signed off that this information is accurate per our existing protocol, and you should have a copy of that letter before you. The staff will begin, the vendor for the Board of Elections, the moving vendor, will begin delivering the voting equipment and the supplies tomorrow, March 6th, and will conclude on Monday, March 11th. Early voting begins for the presidential preference primary on March 13th. ES&S has again provided those 3 reports for the testing. The first report is the 0 report prior to testing. The second report shows the results from the test decks of ballots and is compared to the key. These results match. The third report shows that each DS-200 has been reset to 0 and is now ready for operation for early voting beginning on March 13th. At this time, if the board has no questions, I ask that you certify the early voting equipment for the presidential preference primary as well, which will be held on Tuesday, April 2nd.
Thank you. Just for council, Ray, should we be doing 2 separate motions or one motion as is indicated on the agenda? What do you feel more comfortable with?
I was comfortable with the way that it's phrased being one motion, given that there is no real discussion amongst the board. I think they can take one vote for this.
So is there a motion to certify the mail ballot equipment for the Woonsocket City Council special election to be held Tuesday, May 5th, and for the early voting for the presidential preference primary to be held on April 2, 2024? There's a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by
I'm
saying
sorry,
aye.
just a quick
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry. No.
I don't know if I'm missing the post report with the zeros
For which election?
for the presidential preference primary. I got A, B. I presume this be C, unless maybe it's technical. Maybe it's stapled in here.
That's correct. I apologize. So we can't actually zero out because this is early voting. We cannot zero out the system
Oh, okay.
because we're still in the process of testing the other 200 and so units back there for the polling places. So
Okay.
because we're doing this separately or certifying the early voting equipment before early voting actually starts, but they're also testing the equipment for the presidential preference primary. So we can't zero out the results because testing has not concluded on the polling place machines yet.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the motion, you said May 5th, it was March.
Oh, I'm sorry. March 5th, sorry. So there is a motion and a second. If there are no other questions, I will call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 9, the board may discuss and vote to form and appoint members to a committee for the purpose of promulgating a compensatory time policy for board employees. This is a policy which we discussed at one of the prior meetings, and essentially at this point, if we could look for 3 or maybe even 4 members if we have 4 members, but 3 members would be preferable, I think, unless somebody has really wants to serve on it. But if we could have 3 members, I don't know if there are any volunteers.
I will volunteer.
Commissioner Giacomoni, anyone else wish to volunteer? Yes. Commissioner Scholes? Anyone else? I guess I'll do it. I was gonna volunteer Jenny, but she's not here. All right, I'll volunteer. So the committee, is there a motion to appoint a committee for the purpose of promulgating compensatory time consisting of Commissioner Giacavone, myself, and Commissioner Schultz?
So moved.
And I'll second it. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 10, board may discuss and vote to review public comments for the rule and regulation 410 RICR 10-00-10 campaign finance accounts receivable reduction of penalties and suspension of campaign finance account, and to adopt said regulation. Is that going to be Rick or someone else speaking on that?
I believe,
Ray?
I understood that the staff was making a request to continue this for a month,
Yes.
I believe.
do you want to speak on this, Rick, at all? I believe we want to take it off the agenda, move it to another agenda, because there is currently some legislation proposed that might need to modify this regulation as it's written.
So you just want to let it pass off the agenda at this
Correct.
point? Okay, if there's no issue with that, we'll just let it pass and move on to number 11. Board may discuss and vote to adopt rule and regulation 410 RICR 100012, disclosure of independent expenditures, electioneering, communications, and covered transfers.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as I understand it, as the board knows, this has already been heard a number of times. Public comment has been received, addressed. There have been modifications to the regulation. I believe this is just a pro forma vote that is needed because it did go back to the Secretary of State, I believe, and as a result, in order to have it filed as a exempt under the APA regulation, they needed to have it resubmitted, so this vote would allow that to take place.
So you just, are we just voting to adopt? Or
Just to adopt it.
Just to adopt?
Yep.
Okay. So there's a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor with the motion to adopt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 12. We're just in time for the
Please keep
executive
going.
session.
Oh, keep-
Item number 12, do you want to
No,
jump on or?
no.
you want me to- Okay. Item number 12, the board may vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A4 and 17, 25, 5A7I to discuss and/or vote on possible violation of campaign finance laws and potential litigation in 3 campaign finance matters. Is there, so Ray, should we consider both of them at the same time, item 12 and 13?
No, I think, Mr. Chair, in this case, you should have two separate motions because they are significantly different agenda discussions.
So is there a motion to go into executive session in accordance with item 12?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 13, the board may vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42, 46, 5A4 to discuss investigative proceedings in 3 election-related matters regarding allegations of misconduct, either civil or criminal. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are in executive session.
And you want to, first you want to seal the minutes.
Yes. Do I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are three matters to report out from executive session. The first involves a former candidate, John S. English. Based upon the recommendation of the campaign finance unit, including Mr. Thornton, the board voted to refer to the central collections unit this matter for all accrued delinquent fines for collection. That motion was made by Board Member D. Simone, seconded by Ms. Betancourt. All six board members, the only one being absent was Ms. Maderas, voted in favor, none opposed. The motion was adopted. The second matter involved a Ms. Ashley Pereira, and Mr. Thornton provided the board with an audit of campaign finance activity for the period of June 1, 2022 through December 31, 2023. After this discussion, Board Member Scholes moved to adopt a consent order that had been recommended by Mr. Thornton, seconded by Board Member Mr. D. Simone. All six board members present voted in favor, none opposed. The motion was adopted. Finally, in the matter of the Central Falls Firefighters Local 1485 AFL-CIO, first there was a recusal by Board Member Connors, and based upon membership in the same union. 5 board members were present. After discussion, the board voted by Mr. D. Simone to adopt a consent order that had been recommended by Campaign Finance Director Richard Thornton. That motion was seconded by Mr. Giacavone. All 5 board members voted in favor, none opposed, 1 abstention. And that is it for the activity of the executive session to be reported out.
Thank you, Ray. At this time, we have no further items on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned at, I don't have my, at 3:42 PM.
So move fast.